if you study any of the near-death experience things, it was a wide-awake near-death experience.
Yeah.
And I've only run across one other case of it, a book called One Thought Changes Everything, rooted in what's called three-principle psychology, that was originated by a guy who woke up to who he really was, named Sid Banks, in the 70s, in sort of a hippie environment. But he had this vision of changing psychology forever, that we're running everything backwards, that your thoughts are basically creating your feelings instead of the circumstance, and we're sort of running it backwards.
So makes sense.
It really does. It's a metaphor they use, the three principles. If you're a deist, it would be God, consciousness, and thought. If you're not a deist, it's mind, consciousness, and thought, are the three principles through which we create our sense of reality, for individually and collectively.
The fact that somebody even thought that through is amazing, isn't it?
Well, it's this particularly they use a movie projector where there's the power, which is like the infinite power, which would be absolute potential to be. That would, deist-wise, that would be God the Father. But most theologians wouldn't like the idea. He wouldn't know that he is unless there's a movement.
Yeah, somebody does something, right?
Yeah, there has to be a mirror, and the vibration is vibrating absolute, and that's Mama. So we got Daddy, Mama, and in that moment, I am.
Oh, okay.
Self-awareness. It's aware. It's pure awareness, but it's unaware that it's aware because it's still. It's the only thing there is. No contrast. So we need the relativity and the contrast to know we are down here. But unless you start identifying at higher levels of awareness, in which case your breadth of vision and focal length gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Huh. What an interesting concept.
But if you take the power as the cord, to the any and all things, it goes into the projector, and there's a light bulb, and that's basically awareness.
Okay.
Or it's consciousness. Which is really awareness of being. It's a double-edged sword.
Right, and also my relationship to others. Right?
I'm a witness, and then I'm a witness of being. One's a still state, the other's a vibratory state. So it's Mommy and Daddy, and they get together and they produce I am, or self-awareness, or consciousness, at a particle at every level. Every point becomes self-aware in this potential field.
All part of our body is what you're saying. Yeah, mind and body.
We're all one, and we just. The way we're conditioned to feel separate, because that's what our senses are reported. Yeah, well, it's a survival mechanism, but we don't really need it operating at the mental and emotional level anymore, and it is. So we have people doing crazy stuff out there because they're afraid that they, as the energy, conscious energy, I guess you would, and there could be a particle state of the conscious energy, like a wave in ocean. They're one, same nature, but the wave never claims to be the whole ocean. So.
Joyce, for you again?
Anyway, I think too much.
Well, that's it. No, go ahead. I'm interested in listening.
I have a book. If you're interested, I had that experience, and after I got out of the bar that morning, I said, that was more real, the bailout, in that 20 minutes or so, than anything else. Nothing else made any. And they didn't tell me about that, although I had philosophic tendencies to begin with. And I went looking for truth as a common thread in everything, sort of I'm a flyer, a pilot. So
okay, so you had to have a variety of levels of perception to do that.
Well, you got it.
Everything else.
This whole thing is a function of mental focal length, and a human being or frame of self-reference is a certain focal length, and it's consistent within this particular realm of awareness. And when we start losing this, because we're identified as a point, we're afraid we're losing me.
Yeah.
And if we just let ourselves go, we find out that I'm a center of awareness. I could say a dimensionless still point, which really gets heavy due to metaphysics because ultimately,
hard for most of us to understand that one.
But a dimensionless point essentially is infinitely expandable. It's equivalent to the absolute, but it's a local rep or a little. You could say a divine eyeball. It can move anywhere along this continuum, and when we let go of this clinging to the self-reference as I think I am, is a conceptual self-reference. But it's real. It's an energetic pattern. It wants to, and any pattern of energy wants to live, continue as it is. It loves being whatever the heck it is. That's how this stuff stays together.
It does get
in the
us
first
confused on the way, though.
Well, we're sort of we're on a program where we have to learn how to have a local sense of self, but we don't need to be tied to that except from a survival standpoint. The function, you got to have it to
You
function.
have to relate to others too. You have to not just I, but
well, if the beauty of this thing, if you're an infinitely expandable, your sense of self can embrace others, and then in which case I can love you as myself, because at that level you are myself.
Oh, that's an interesting concept.
But this is just we're moving back, so it expands our sense of self. Right now, I could look at my finger and fall in love with my finger.
If you wanted to focus
Put all my consciousness into that and become self-ignorant of the whole body. Now, if I had another finger on me that did that, we'd be out here thinking we're separate fingers.
Oh boy!
But if we remember the middle ground, which is our awareness of being, then I couldn't hurt you if I wanted to, because you and I are one. And yet
That's a real amazing concept, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
It's our mind has diffiety understanding
Yeah,
unities, obviously, because it functions based on up, down, in, out, off, on.
And I think within our society teaches us to survive, and the way to survive is you take care of yourself. Then others.
Well, you need
But
that.
I need others taking care of me too.
Yeah. Well, we tend conveniently ignore that all of this thing it's all one thing at some level, and I don't exist without the air. Or I have this conceptual idea that I'm separate, but ultimately it's all energy from a physics standpoint. But I'm sort of fixated and self-absorbed in this because they told me I'm a body and I got to take care of myself, and I need that to survive. But at a certain point, I got to outgrow that. That's sort of a stage of awareness of who and what we all ultimately are.
Opening up to the other experience and other people. Yeah.
Well,
the wider range.
Yeah, I'm afraid to let go of my contraction, and my contraction hurts. And we find ways to stay self-contracted.
That's an interesting.
And this society actually encourages that, because it's forming us. It's almost like you're a growing center of awareness, like a lump of coal that can crystallize into a diamond. Then it doesn't need the pressure to know it is. It doesn't need the self-reflection, because it feels one. But you're still functional. You don't lose. See, if you get into the non-dual stuff, they say there's no self, all this stuff. Now you always have a sense of self.
I was just going to say, that would really confuse us.
Well, it would be dysfunctional.
We live within ourselves.
It would be dysfunctional, obviously. But it's all.
What an interesting concept.
It really gets simple when you start from. There's a thing called top-down thinking versus bottom-up, and it's probably, I can never remember the difference between inductive and deductive logic.
Okay.
But if you start from the top down with oneness and work your way down, it's pretty obvious there's common ground. It's probably consciousness, of which all of this stuff is it's an energy field that's self-aware, if you would. The energy in a unformed state or a unconditioned state and pattern conditioned states, basically. And if I'm the field identified as the form, I'm in trouble, because the consciousness itself is innately creative. So whatever I think is what I'm going to get.
Process through, right?
It's got to give me what it. If it at the absolute level or at the level of oneness, any thought would instantaneously manifest, because there's no friction. There's no other apart to keep it from automatically manifesting at every vibratory level.
And then you run into the issues of monitoring the self-will, the desire to do whatever our body says and our brain says. And that becomes complex, because that makes our life more interesting.
Yeah, you need
survival skill.
Yeah, what we say, you need a centralized control if you really get into the management. And ultimately, philosophically, they would say there is a divine vision. It's already complete. We're in the process of opening our eyes to see a bigger and bigger vision of it is. So one of the guys named Bill Samuel has this thing called The Woodcutter and the King. And when the woodcutter, who was the prince, basically, who's labored all his life, the father finally wakes him up, puts him on the mountaintop, and says, I'm the king. Because any one of those points is still another reference in the absolute, just from a different perspective. He gets up there and says, I can do this, that. And he says, no, it's already perfect. The vision's already done. All I have to
It's
do
been
is
taken care of,
yeah.
right?
Well, if you go back to that absolute in the movement, a kid from Harvard, no, it was Princeton, had a girl that was bread and breakfast, and he asked, "Why did it do this? Why did it vibrate?" Well, that's anthropomorphic. You're projecting a human quality. It had to happen. Every possibility has to become actual if you have infinite time.
Yeah, which
Right?
we don't, right?
Yeah, no, not with our level of perspective.
Right.
So everything has to become actual. So it had to vibrate. When it vibrates, it gets self-awareness, and it becomes I am. And at that point, all of the potential becomes actual. One big bang from alpha to omega. So it's always already done.
We just
At
aren't
that
always
level,
aware.
we're down in it where it's still unfolding over time. So it's all a matter of us broadening our breadth of vision. Mm-hmm. And that's a function of letting go of this particular focal length.
Control, yeah.
Not losing it myself. I still need that as a functional thing, but I got to lighten up a little bit and then
Flow a little, right?
yes. As a center of awareness, you have a capability to almost, it's like a guitar box.
Mm-hmm. Vibrate in different directions. Is that what you're thinking of?
If the air or we'll say the space in the box is still. Mm-hmm. It's not internally disturbed like my mind.
Your mind's always working, right?
Well, yeah, it's
Mine too.
I'm constantly splashing the inner waters. If they're still, then you get a perfect image of whatever is to be reflected. So your mind is like a mirroring mechanism. So ultimately, if the space is still and you pluck the cord, it will resonate at the exact frequency of that cord. And if it's conscious space, it experiences what it's like to be that frequency. So if you're a conscious space, like a still state, you have a capability to experience every state of vibration or being or creation and be limited by that. Mm-hmm. That's divine.
Yeah. Don't think I'm there, that's for sure. I don't know about the...
No, I'm probably pushing the limits at this point, but anyway, I do go on. Anyway, it's the love of my life.
That's a neat concept. How did you even run into it along your life path?
Well, that bailout showed me. I experienced it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. I had a literal experience of something that was inexperiencable by any person. Mm-hmm. So I had to not be a person. I had to be a pure witness, pure awareness, pure witness. And it's almost like a movie screen. If I'm down here at this level, I go bit. Each one of those is like I've taken a picture. And then I put them together and make a movie out of them, basically, if my senses do anyhow. Well, what happens if I step back? I get a bigger bit of information. Time would slow down. What if there's an infinite focal length? Which is the experience I had. If you go all the way back, it stops moving because you need sequence for moving. You need multiple pictures.
For the way that the mind and body.
Yeah, if it's one big picture, it's still. And at that level, it's sort of the divine eye or the eye on the top of the pyramid on the dollar bill. That's the metaphor for it. But if you like, I don't sell it. All my pensions came in, so I give it away. But
that's good that you have something to live on. That's a nice reality, isn't
it?
It
gives me time to think on this stuff.
Yeah.
Most people don't have it, so it's sort of it's the old philosophy. That's my job.
So that's what you choose to do.
It's what I love, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's a neat concept. Thank you for sharing.
Excuse me?
Talking metaphysics.
Yeah. How did you tell?
Yeah, I love metaphysics.
Oh, I have a book.
That's awesome. Yeah.
As soon as I get done here, I'll go get it out of the car. I call it my 40-year state of the head message.
That's nice that you took the time to write it down, so some of the others can understand.
It's part of the family. It's almost like it's a eureka thing where you find a shell, something unique that you've never seen before, and the first thing you want to do is share it.
Share it.
Yeah.
That's the collectivity.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you talked to me through it. I'm sure it's going to
I used to call it the Super Bowl syndrome, where some football players played 50 years, been hurt badly, and he gets to the Super Bowl. So you're fulfilling a lifelong desire, we'll say. Gets to the Super Bowl, and he's the MVP. So he's got the cherry on top. And they turned it into a commercial. How does that feel?
Yeah.
I've never had any feeling like it in my life.
Yeah. Me either.
I wish, and
Me
the
either,
next thing he's going to say, I wish I could share it. Because it's a flow state, and you realize you realize it has to be given away to keep it.
Yeah.
And the third thing is the mind comes back online, doesn't want to lose its day job, and says, what's next?
Yeah.
Now it's not a holistic experience anymore, and now you're out looking for your next desire to go back to the holistic experience. In Buddhism, they would say is desirelessness. Well, fulfilling a desire gives you a moment of peace from your mind, and you experience what your true nature is.
Yeah,
and the mind comes back on, and now you're looking for yourself again. You're already what you're looking for.
Yeah. But I think the great thing is it really gets you in touch with who you are as a spiritual person. Your spiritual essence, it really gets you in touch with that.
Well,
and your reason for being alive.
Well,
and being born.
it's even better than that.
Yeah.
It's what you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's neat that you're coming from different life experiences, but you understand what you're.
Oh yeah,
you're
it opened up the doors for me in a lot of ways.
And the truth of the matter is, and most people who's been into this, I don't like to call it business, been into it for a long time. I can't tell you anything you don't already know. It's in your heart. All I'm doing is allowing you to remember something that you actually forgot from a big picture standpoint.
Right, exactly.
And there's a thing called the diamond web where you could say holographic universe. I like the spider web. With dewdrops in the morning, the sun comes up, shines in each dot, which are lenses. The whole web's reflected in each drop.
You want to hear something funny? I had cataract surgery, and I told the doctor when I lie in bed, the sun through my bedroom window hits my left cataract lens, and I can see the whole spokes of my actual lens.
Business.
So it's interesting.
Oh, your turn?
Literally.
Back to Earth.
All right, yeah. All right, thanks. I appreciate it
Good
when you
luck,
go out. Leave a copy. I'm Beverly.
Okay, Beverly. And what was
You
your
are
name?
Joyce.
Joyce. Beverly.
You never know what you're going to experience in waiting for.
It opens up your whole inner soul to so much when you really look at
I've
things from a
not
different
studied that at
perspective.
all. He's obviously living it, which is great.
Yeah. Well,
And
definitely
sharing
changes
it.
your
Oh, he
perspective.
loves. Yeah.
Is this yours?
That's it. What are you guys doing?
I have these impromptu conversations all the time. Okay, thanks a lot.
See you again.
Appreciate it, Mike.